And on there, you'll see some slides, and that's what we're going to go through today. And it's a very practical session. So the whole idea is to just give you the tools to take you through the whole process and make sure that you know how to find the information again later. So if you see my screen, then hopefully it looks like yours. And you've got that open, and then there's the PowerPoint version or the Google Slide version to what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to put him down there. Okay. So this guide here is the student guide, but there is a tab up here for supervisors. And so when you have a question about, what's going on in the whole process, this is a good place to look. But of course, you can also contact me. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the slides. And the very first thing I have there for you is kind of a table of contents of all the different pages in the slides. So you can come back and use this as another kind of a guide. So just a big overview. This is a process that takes place from January through next October with the juniors and into their senior year. And so the beginning part is exploratory. That's what they're doing right now, where they've chosen their topic and now they're starting to narrow down to a research question. They will do 3 written reflections along the way, and those are part of their score. They will do a draft, and that's where you provide formative assessment. You give really good full feedback that one time on their rough draft. They will do the final paper and then a Viva Voce. And the Viva Voce is a conversation with you about the process and what they learned about their topic. It's a way for you to verify that they have completed this with academic integrity. The final assessment is for us, and sometimes students ask to have their projected extended essay score on their college applications or for their college applications, but the paper is assessed externally by the IB. So those are kind of the big chunks. So the resources for you are the LibGuide, which is the first page that you have open there, ManageBack, which is where students submit their work and where you communicate with them, and the IB pages particular for your subject. Overview of some of the deadlines. The next thing coming up is in the week of April 8th, where students are going to have a final-ish research question with a bibliography. So the idea is that they know their research question is going to work because they have the sources to find the answer. They'll show that to you, and you want to have a good look at it and make sure that they're going in the right direction. The question will work. The sources seem strong. I've told them all of them should be reaching out to you now to talk about this exploratory stage, because you don't want them to finalize a question and then realize that it's not within the parameters of the subject. The next big thing for them is the detailed outline, May 20th. And so the idea here is that they have all their evidence organized, ready to go, so they can write their paper over the summer break. And so that's at the end of the school year. Then they come back. They have a little bit of time in August to continue working on that draft. They give it to you. You give detailed feedback, and then they take that feedback and finish up the essay in mid-October. So that's just kind of an overview of some of the key dates. So in terms of your responsibilities, it's they recommend like around 3 to 5 hours per student. And so it kind of breaks down with times when the student comes and asks for encouragement and some direction. You are going to be the one to have expertise in your particular subject. So I'll show you today where you can find the IB guidelines for your subject. We need timely assessment from you, so especially when they give you that draft, try to give your assessment or your feedback within 2 weeks of that draft so that they can turn it around and start working toward the final. The deadline is not, it's not like a high stakes deadline in that we will accept a draft later, but all deadlines that I just talked about will be triggering an admin response if the student doesn't have it done on time. So we will make sure that they are, adhering to the deadlines and following up. That's not your job. The other thing we need you to do is stay aware of the student's progress so that we can authenticate that it's their work. So if you don't see the student along the way, and then all of a sudden the kid shows up with, some kind of incredible paper, that's a problem. And then let the EE coordinator know of any issues along the way. So the coordinator, that's me this year and whoever it's going to be for next year, is in charge of communicating and creating the timeline, monitoring the students' submissions and communicating with parents when there are issues, teaching the research skills within the context of the Gecko core class, including dealing with any citation issues, and helping students one-on-one with general skills. The coordinator is not an expert in the subject, so those kinds of expert level questions about the subject, the coordinator will kick back to you for the best answers and guidance. One really important part of this that's worth 6 points is the reflections and the Viva Voce. And so it's a really powerful experience for students to go through this journey. They're very, very independent. And so the reflections are meant to kind of capture some of that struggle and some of that success along the way. So they have 2 reflections. They happen, one will happen at the beginning or middle of April, and then another one in the fall, and then another one at the very end when they do their final. That's a rough frame for the timing of the reflections. When they have their Viva Voce, it's a conversation with you, set aside about 15 or 20 minutes for the kid to talk about what happened and what did they learn about their topic. You might like to take some notes during that conversation to help you with your final comment about the student. And you're also welcome to share any notes that you took with the student because it may help him or her with the final reflection that they have to do. The other big chunk for you is the assessment piece of this. So they'll give you a draft, and we want you to provide timely, detailed feedback on that. I'll show you today where you can see the criteria. All of the subjects are assessed on the same rubric, and the IB also gives you some guidance about what you're looking for each criterion in your subject. The paper will go into the calendar Dropbox in ManageBack, and so you'll see a Turnitin report, and that will show you any citation issues, and we'll talk about that today as well. And then the final score in mid-October is when we do a final citation check and you score the paper, and that's it. That's the end of it. Unless the student has a paper that's a failing condition, we don't provide more feedback, we score it, and the kid moves on to other things. This is the time to just double check for sure that you're comfortable that this is your student's work. So the citation piece of this is really important because the IB is really, as they should be, really careful about any plagiarism issues. So the works cited list is the list at the end of their paper, and it's an exact match between what's on that list and what they have cited in their paper. So it's the works that they have cited in their paper. All paraphrased and quoted material has to be cited. And the way that they do citations, we use MLA, but kids could also use APA if they prefer. We don't use footnotes. It's in-text or parenthetical citation, and they can use those in combination. So they can mention the author in the sentence and then put a page number in parentheses at the end, or put the author and page number at the end in parentheses. A combination of these two is recommended. There's a citation app that the kids can use, and you as well if you have any questions. For the most part, if there are questions about citation, you can just send them right to the library, because that's a big part of what we can do for them. In terms of Turnitin, the kids and sometimes teachers too get really concerned about the similarity percentage. So Turnitin is just showing matches in the paper to matches found in other papers and on the internet. And so what we have to do is analyze those matches. Turnitin isn't smart enough to know if they're actually plagiarized. It just knows that it's a match. So a direct match is going to be highlighted, and we have to look at that match and make sure it's quoted and has a citation. A sprinkling of matches, where we have like maybe a few words in a sentence or in a paragraph, indicates probably a poor paraphrase. It might need to be reworded, and it has to be cited. It's also possible that a student could have a really good paraphrase and it doesn't show up as a match, but we have a pretty good idea it's not that kid's idea. It has to be cited. So it's just to say that Turnitin doesn't catch everything. That's not really its job. All it's doing is helping us see where there might be issues. So here's an example of one of our kids, just to show in case you're not familiar with Turnitin. So the highlighted areas are the places where there's a match, and each color and number there, that little red number 1, that will, you click it and it will show you exactly the source where that came from. So in this case, it's not a problem. We've got the author mentioned in the sentence. We've got the page number at the end. The direct match is quoted, so no issue. I want to show you a little bit about ManageBack, because you may not have seen in ManageBack the extended essay section. So I'm going to show you this live in a minute, but just to kind of give a preview. There are 4 tabs in ManageBack that you will have access to. The first one is called the worksheet, and that's where the student writes up the proposal of what they plan to do. And there's also a little section at the bottom of that page which has interview notes, and that's a place where you can communicate with the student. Some teachers have said they like to put their kind of like a little record of what has happened with the student there as a way to remember later for the comment and for the student's reflections. The next tab is the researcher's reflection space, which is actually not for the reflections. It's actually more of a workspace. Most students don't use this space very much, but I have asked them to put there a live link to their work document. So we have talked about having a research log, which is where they do all their work, save their sources, do their notes, do their outline, everything in that one place. So they should have a link there that you can click to see, what's going on. It's not your job to check up on them, but if you are curious or want to know what's going on, there should be a link there for you to see. The next tab is not visible to students. It's only visible to you, and that's the assessment tab, and that's where you'll see the rubric. So the way it works is you just, at the very end when you're doing the final paper, or you can use this when you're looking at the draft as well, you just look at the criterion and the descriptors, click the number, and it will kind of tally it up for you. The kids get a letter grade on this paper, but the rubric is tied to numbers. So we use grade boundaries. So if the kid gets, like for example, this kid got 25, actually according to the grade boundaries, the student would be getting a B. The teacher marked it an A, but we would probably, in our minds, think of it as a B. There's an optional area for making a comment, but it's really, really great for the school if you do put a comment there, because it's private between you and the school. The student doesn't see it, and it's a way for you to explain your score a little bit. So we will get a list of all the kids and their scores from the IB, and if there's a big difference, we may ask to have some information about why the IB scored it that way, and it can be handy to see why you scored it the way you did. So optional, but very helpful to have there. Okay, the assessment piece, and we can talk about this more in the fall. One thing to remember about the assessment piece is that the engagement criterion on the rubric is assessed after you look at their reflections. So in the reflections section, you'll see there are 3 reflections, and those are equal to 6 points if they do a nice job on those. Most of these we just talked about. So, these are some comments. So one thing you can't do as a supervisor is recommend particular changes. It's more like you kind of point them in the direction of something that needs to be fixed. And so this is just a place where you can see, okay, there's a problem here. How can I say it to the student without telling them kind of the answer or exactly what to fix? The 4th tab in Manage Back that you'll have access to is called the Planning and Progress form. But it's not really for planning or progress. It's actually for reflections. So the 2 of these tabs are kind of, to me, named in a strange way. But this is where the kids will write their reflections. They can have 250 words total, so they're pretty short. 500 words total. And then once they put a reflection in there, the date will stick there and it will be locked. If the student wants to go back and change something sometime, the coordinator can unlock it, so they are able to make changes. At the end of this document is where you'll have your supervisor comment, and that's a required component of this page. What we'll do is download this whole page as a PDF and send it to the IB, and so they will see on one paper the students' 3 reflections and then your comment at the bottom. And you have quite a bit of space for a comment. It's a way for you to explain anything that might have gone wrong in the process. It's a way to address any weaknesses that you see and talk about, kind of what happened. So usually it's a way for you to kind of not help the kid, but, just kind of explain from your perspective what happened. Okay, there are some limitations. First of all, we don't want you to be chasing them around. The coordinator will follow up on things like that. It's about 3 to 5 hours of consultation. That doesn't include your feedback time. So they should be meeting with you, enough along the way that they're getting some good advice from you. So that 3 to 5 hours, some kids seem to take up more time than others, as I'm sure you can guess. But just be aware that you're not spending, oceans and oceans of time. If someone's coming to you again and again and not making progress, not acting on your feedback from the last conversation, you're perfectly able to let me know and let them know that it's no use continuing to meet. The kid is just spinning. And in that case, I can get involved and, I can spend more time with them. So these are just some things to be aware of that you're not able to do. And that's where kind of some of those comments can help you figure out how to redirect them. They will have a lesson coming up in the research question process, so I'll be talking with them about how to do that. These are just some FAQs for later. There's one draft that's really important. I can't emphasize that enough. You don't have time, and neither does the student, to submit endless drafts. The goal is not to have a perfect paper. The goal is to have a final paper in October so that the senior at that time can move on to other things. So one good full draft with feedback and a month to act on that feedback is plenty. And we don't want you to be spending a ton of time looking at multiple drafts. Okay, is that the end? I think that's the end of my slides. So I want to take questions, but before I do, I just want to show you briefly in ManageBack a couple of things. So this is an example of the extended essay section in ManageBack. And if you want, maybe I'll just pause for a minute and you can go into ManageBack yourself on your own computer and make sure you can find this extended essay section and just kind of click through these tabs. You can look at one of your students or any student. You just choose, grade 11, extended essay, and kind of go through. The worksheet is the proposal section. Researcher's reflection space is where they should have their link to their live document. I'm following up with them all this next week on this live document thing. If they don't have it there, I will be contacting them. The assessment tab, that's where you can see the whole rubric, each of the different criterion, knowledge and understanding, and then the descriptors for each one. And then at the bottom, you'll see the space here for the score and your comment. And then the final one, the planning and progress form, and that's where you see their reflections, and then you'll have your reflections here as well, and you'll write down how many hours did you spend. You can see they've given you 3,900 words for your supervisor comment, so I've never seen one that long. Okay, the other thing I want to show you is also in ManageBack, and that's in the calendar. So there's no, we don't have a task system for this exactly. So the way they submit is through the calendar Dropbox. And so in the calendar, the first date I told you about is coming up in April. And it's here, April 8th. So you see here, research question and annotated bibliography is due on that day. In order for you to see your students' work, you'll go there and see it. It'll be here when they've submitted it. Okay. I will let you know of anybody who's falling behind. It's not your job to check on them. They should come with it printed, ready to go, and have a conversation about it. But for other things like the draft, you need to see the Turnitin report. It will be in this section here. Okay, let me open up now for some questions. So on this page here, the Supervisor tab, this is where you can see the subject requirements for your subject, for an extended essay in that subject. So for example, if I click on the business management one, it opens up like this, and this section here on the side, this little mini table of contents is what you want to dig into. So it tells you, what kind of topic works, what kind of topic is okay. It gives you some examples. It will give you treatment of the topic. That's like if there are requirements around the amount of time of the source or the location of a source, like does it have to be related to where we are here in the world. And then this one is about the assessment of that subject with the overall rubric. So each subject has one of these that kind of pops out into these 4 pages. So that's one thing that you want to have a look at. The other thing that might be helpful is these subject reports. So like here, if we open up the one from business, these are the reports that the IB puts out at the end. I don't know if they do it every year. Craig probably knows. But they give kind of an overview of what they saw in all the papers. And so it can give you an idea of what they're looking for and the kinds of papers that did well and the kinds of issues that kids had. So I think these are not very long, but they just give you kind of an overview of what went on that year in the business papers that they got. There are a lot of sample papers as well. So under the Lessons tab for the kids, there's this page called Past Essays. And this is a place where you can view papers in each subject. So here are 3. Seems okay? So the main thing is communication, honestly. Just communicate with me. If you have any question, reach out. If you're worried about your student, let me know and I'll connect with that person. That's really the number one thing. They will have they have this timeline which you will also have, and so this is kind of the plan. Just so you can see, there's the deadlines in red. Those are the ones that we've talked about, but they have a lot of things to do in between, a lot of different lessons that they do. So this is kind of the overview for them. And on here, it also tells you, what does the supervisor need to do? So in the middle here is what the students are doing, and then over here is what the supervisors are doing. So for example, here, April 8th, they're going to submit their question. You're going to review the sources and alert the coordinator if it's not looking right, if it's, if you have a problem. All right, so this is another good document to have your eye on. And I will let you know. So I'll email, when it's time for something to be turned in, I'll email and say, please watch for this. The kid should be coming, and so you're aware. Good? Are you excited? I know Trey's excited. You're so excited, right, Trey? Because you have like 3 kids, I think.